Okay, so this is a goblin shrine. As you can see, it spits out like 20 or so goblins, which is really great because that's kind of what we need at this point. So we're gonna try and do our best to make sure that none of these escape. I like these green goblins, so I'm gonna make sure I especially get those. And then we just gotta clear up these last two. Oh, cow level. All right, that's pretty lucky. And I guess I've never seen that. Never had two portals at the same time. That's the vaults and the cow level. Lucky. All right, what is going on, guys? So we're going to be doing some leveling tips and tricks for a fresh character and how to get started. Now, in order to make this video, I did have to start a hardcore seasonal character because my other characters are already pretty far along with the altar, and the altar gives us a lot of power. So, to double check, we're going to go over here and make sure that the altar is actually empty. I've done a lot of leveling over the past couple days on numerous accounts, so we don't have anything there, and we see that it requires 10 reusable parts. Now, that's not too difficult to go get on our own. We can go to a couple areas in the game that have a lot of gray items to get those. But it's so much easier to just go over to your follower and take their weapons. Now, I take his because I don't need to use him until later in the game. I don't use a bow, right? So his weapon's not going to help me. And then I take this guy, the Templars, because he's got 2 weapons on him. I'm going to replace this one just simply because it does a little bit more damage. And in the beginning of the game, that little bit more damage is going to help out a lot. Now, you might be asking, why not take the enchantresses? First, we don't need it. That's enough reusable parts to go to the altar. And secondly, at level 12, I believe, she has a really high level weapon on her. And if we take the one now, it'll just be a gray weapon. If we wait until later, we get a blue weapon, and it'll do a lot of damage for us. So after scrapping that, we're going to go over here and sacrifice it at the altar. And this gave us our kill streak timer duration, and reward bonuses are doubled. Now in this game, if you want to go and level up the fastest, it's to do massacre bonuses. So that means that as you're fighting, shooting, killing enemies, once you reach over, I think 10 enemies or 11 or somewhere around there in a row, you'll have a little timer that'll pop up right about here, and it'll start counting down, and anytime you hit an enemy, it resets that timer, and then as you kill more enemies, it goes up higher and higher. Every 100 enemies killed, it doubles your reward, I believe. So you start out before getting that altar at like 1 times or 1.25 or something like that. The experience, and then it goes up to 2 times, 4 times, 8 times. And the maximum that you can achieve is 8 times at monsters killed over 400. So with that altar thing, we would get 8 times over 400 monsters killed. So with that being said, we've got that. Now, there's 2 things that you could do. The first would be to go and just start leveling up by killing monsters, but that's rather inefficient. And the second thing you could do is to go get the cube. So, we're going to head over and get the cube. Now, the reason why it's nice to do this in the beginning of the game is because you need to level up to about level 18, I believe, anyway. And killing all of the monsters in this area should get you around level 18 or very close to it. 25% attack speed bonus, which is nice. We're going to open this chest because why not get an extra item? I do have auto equip items turned on, so anything that I click on should be automatically updated. Now in the early game, you don't gotta worry too much about these blue guys, these blue monsters, simply because you level up so quickly. And when you level up, you get an explosion around you, and that explosion deals a lot of damage to enemies. There is a portal over here, but at this point, hopping into it would be a major distraction, and the amount of stuff you can get there, even if they do drop a legendary item or something, it's more than likely not going to be good, and it would take us forever to kill. So we're going to ignore that. We did unlock Corpse Explosion, so if we want to, we can just spam that anytime there's a body on the ground. We don't want to do it too much in the beginning, just because you run out of monsters in this game, and then you lose your bonus. As you can see, right there, we hit 100, and that should give us a, I believe, a 2 times bonus. Now, there are a lot of monsters here, so I'm gonna spam that a little bit. And I am not entirely sure where the, what's it called? The exit is here. Oh, we got a green goblin. That's lucky. I've been getting incredibly lucky with goblins lately. Alright, let me double check where we're at. I hope I didn't have to go over here. I might have to. So if that's the case, I'm going to go ahead and try and lead these guys in that direction, which the game really doesn't want me to go to. Okay, actually, I think I might be going the right way. Every single time you load into a new game, the map area changes a little bit. So sometimes the exit's over here, sometimes it's over here, or over here. So lots of different areas it could be in. Now we're going to give these blue dudes a little bit of respect. We're going to continue making our way over to the exit. As you can see, we're a few away from getting level 200. And I just realized that I say "as you can see" an astronomical amount, which is highly irritating. So I'm going to do my best to correct that. Go ahead and, for anyone who's bored, see if you can find a counter, see how many times I say it, comment it on the video. And you'll see just how annoying I am when it comes to that. Alright, that guy's dangerous. Luckily, we're at the end. So, bye-bye. Alright, now we're going to let this go down. 6.5 times experience, so that's pretty good. The reason we did that is get the skeletons. We see we're already level 15. That's enough to get a better weapon. So we're going to go back and now talk to the enchantress. These followers move in each of these areas. So we go and click on her and look at her inventory. We see that now she's got a damage of 37.5. Also has 3 intelligence. And our necromancer is an intelligence build, which means that our damage is boosted with intelligence, and we will go over that later. So I'm just going to go ahead and learn this plan. Legendary two-handed mighty weapon. Nice. Right, heading back in the area. Blue dudes are extremely dangerous for a normal player. And what I mean by a normal player, I don't mean I'm anything impressive. I just mean if you were to come to this area normally and not know any tips and tricks, those guys are incredibly dangerous. A lot of people lose their lives, including myself. Look at that. Our deeds and valor will be remembered. We'll see. We'll see if they'll be remembered. So, as you can see, we lost... Oh, there's another as you can see. We lost that character forever, and it is gone. Dead. So, we'll go ahead and run through another one and see if we can get back to the area, and I'll try and edit it. Okay, we're back to where we were before. And this time we're going to add on one of those tips that we probably should have done earlier, which is since we have our follower, why not equip some healing spells on him? You know, probably have helped us stay alive. And secondly, you know, we have these ability points and stuff like that in here for these runes. So obviously put them in. Stun enemies probably would have kept us alive. Deal more damage probably would have kept us alive. So we're just going to make sure that we're doing that all the time. Now, I'm pretty sure I need to get level 12 before I can get that weapon that I want. So we're just going to kill a few more enemies. This is what killed us last time, was these guys. Because we were standing in their explosion. And, you know, like I always say, standing in explosions is never good for anybody. So we're going to be a little bit more cautious this time around. And start blowing all of these things up from a distance. Back speed bonus. Alright. So we do not do hardly any damage with the current weapon that we have on. But that in a way can help us level up faster. Since these guys take longer to kill, they spit out more of these rats, which allows us to stack up a kill streak much faster. Take these things out. Alright, those blue dudes, incredibly dangerous. We're going to stay near these corpses, and hopefully we can get enough of these corpses to show up to actually kill these things. Let's find out if we got enough. Get out of there. Look at that. So the only reason we're alive there is because of corpse explosion and the fact that our Templar healed us a little bit. As you can see, if you don't get to level 12 before you come through the door, your damage is just ridiculously low until you come over here and get the enchantress weapon. So we barely made it through that time. And since this is a new character, she's got her weapon handy dandy right there. We're going to trade out anything that can. And we're going to thank our follower by giving him a weapon as well. Now, these things right here, they don't really matter too much. You can just look at it and see what it does best. I just kind of stick to the left here, except for this guardian thing. So, what can you equip? Actually, you know what? Let's be double nice and give you some pants, too. Alright, we've got our weapon now, and we should be able to place some more skill points in, which do that now. Now these things are a joke, but they still are going to be doing massive amounts of damage to us, so we have to be careful not to get surrounded like that. When I get to the Elder Sanctum, my standard rule of thumb is just to always go down until I get to a wide area. That makes me want to go to the left. It's not very descriptive, but hey, it's working so far. You see, I can't go down anymore, so now I'm going to go, I guess right would be correct thing to say. These green dudes, even if you run away from them, by the way, they're going to teleport in front of you. Which is why coming back here at a later level can be more advantageous, because then you have some skills and teleport abilities to keep you alive. But for the necromancer, you just want to corpse explode everything. And obviously, if you're not playing a hardcore character, you know, it doesn't even matter if you die. Come back over here again and kill one or two more with some corpses. It doesn't matter if you die. Pop back in, kill some more. rinse and repeat. I want to keep our kill streak going a little bit more, hoping that there will be a cursed chest. And if we use the cursed chest, we should be able to get a lot of levels. And I'm going to miss it. Okay, cool. Barely got one there. All right, there's that cube, or the chest we were hoping for. The cube is located to the right up here, but these enemies can kill us, so we're just going to stay back here and start corpse exploding everywhere. I'm going to stay where it's nice and safe. If we ever need to, we can try and drop our kill streak to get a level. It'll heal us really quickly. But standard rule of thumb is kill any enemies behind you, and then just kill a couple of them right here to get some corpses in front of you for protection. So there we hit our 400 goal. Now when we drop it, it should be an 8 times bonus, 8 times experience. We're already level 24. We get some handy dandy rewards, and then we go over here and we get the cube. Now once we've unlocked the cube, it will be permanently unlocked on our character and any new characters we make in this realm. So if we want to do another hardcore character, well, great, we got the cube. If we want to do a hardcore seasonal character, that would not be the case. Or scratch that. Other way around. Turn it down. Okay, so now we get to have at least a, I'm not sure what these things are called, last chance survival things. Okay, so now we get to have at least a, I'm not sure what these things are called, last chance survival things. When you take fatal damage, the Templar rushes to your aid, knocking back enemies within 15 yards, healing you for 15% life based on the Templar's strength, and shielding you from all damage for 5 seconds. So, and if we were a little bit, worried about our health in there as well, we could have also have taken one of these passives. Standalone is pretty good. When you have the skeletons out, however, it doesn't really help you that much because each of those minions, we have 7 of them, is reduced by 10%. So that's 70% reduction from the increased armor. So we're actually going to change our skeletons here in a second. They're great for that area to keep you safe, but now not so much. And then the next thing we have over here, it depends on, again, what you want to rock. As you can see here, the essence cost of command skeletons and the cooldown of command golem are reduced. We are going to be using command golem, so this might be a really good thing to equip. We don't really care about the duration. We don't really care about that as it doesn't help us too much. Assuming a corpse has a chance to spawn a health globe, that's great for where we're at right now. As long as we use corpse explosion, we get a chance to have a health globe and that could heal us. But I think I'm going to go ahead and take this cooldown right here, just because it's going to help us out a lot. Then we need to get rid of our skeletons and get our golem. We'll double check each of these things in terms of if there's something else we want to add. I like that decrepify. Okay. So now the next thing that we're going to be doing is trying to get that second part of the altar finished. And that requires a flawless ruby as well as some reusable parts and arcane dust. So that's why we want to be collecting things to scrap. Now, if you you really want like reusable parts, let's say you're missing, you can always just start another character and then go over and take the Scoundrel and the Templar's stuff and scrap it if you really want to find something that's super fast and quick. If not, going to the Temple of the Firstborn in Act 2, there's a lot of little armor things you can click on, and that'll give you some gray stuff. Now, in terms of what we're doing now, we need to get 2 diamonds. So the best way to do that is to go and kill a boss. Now, when looking around, none of these bosses are particularly easy to get to or fast, and some of them are incredibly dangerous. For example, I would never go to Israel, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. So we're just gonna leave game and jump back in. And it's a really good thing that we chose to leave game because we forgot to do one other thing, which is change your difficulty back to normal. The only reason we started on master difficulty was because when we're going through that area, the enemies around us, if we use corpse explosion and kill them, the master difficulty gives us a boost in experience, which got us up to the current level that we're at. So let's take a look. We got the butcher here. Belial, not dealing with him. Asmodan's pretty easy to go to. But I would rather, if I can, get either Magda, Skeleton King, or Zoltan Cool. So we're just going to hop back in and see if we can get that. Alright, Belial, there's the Skeleton King. Pro tip, break these little things here in the beginning areas. Once you break enough of them, you get a bit of a boost, and this will help you get through this area just a little bit faster. Don't really care about all of these enemies, so we're just going to run by as much of them as we can. Really important when you're on a hardcore character. You can see we almost died there. To at least kill some of the enemies in case you get trapped like that. You get a corpse and you can explode it and get through. Now what saved us there was I believe the Templar's ability. Which I was relying on. Now our speed boost should wear it yet. There it is. Wore off just there. We can activate it again in this room by breaking all of these pots, and it'll help us just move and get out of the way a little bit faster. So we're gonna activate that, throw our goblin there, and then we're gonna start breaking some of these things. There we go. We got a bit of a speed boost. We're gonna hit him with Decrepify and his bone armor right off the bat, and explode. What the? Okay. So we're back. I'm on Teach Me 3. So this is the 3rd iteration of the character. I went back and watched that video, and I still am not entirely sure what killed me. And when I looked at my toughness, it said at about 863. Right now I'm at 1363. It's a little bit higher, and I just did that by making sure some of these had vitality on it or regeneration. I've never came here at that high of a level. Normally when I come here, I'm around this level 18, level 19. You know, so maybe I came here at a little bit too high of a level. Even still, we were on normal difficulty though, so it shouldn't have been that drastic. I'm not entirely sure what happened there. This is far more standard. So, we want 2 diamonds. Now, funnily enough, in order to level my character back up to level 19, I went to the Temple of the Firstborn over here in Act 2. And I just so happened to have a vision over there when I was low level, so I thought, hey, I'll come in and take a peek. And it was a goblin level, so they spat out some diamonds and a little bit of gold, which is lucky. But if not, we would come over here and we would look and we'd say, okay, well, there's our 2 diamonds. You know, sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. If you don't get them, you have to go and do another boss bounty. So in this case, we would have lucked out and gotten our 2 diamonds. So we're going to head back to town. And then we're just going to go over here and train him up one level, which will allow us to craft a flawless diamond. So you need about 4,000-ish gold in order to get that crafted. Then we're going to go over here to our altar and unlock this. Now, as you can see, I've got plenty of reusable parts and plenty of arcane dust. If you're short here, like I said, Temple of the Firstborn, go over there, click on some of the pillars and stuff over there, or the armor racks, and they'll spit out some stuff for reusable parts. If you don't want to do that, just get a brand new character, go over, steal your followers' stuff, it'll give you that. Arcane dust isn't too hard to find as well. Most of the items that drop in the game will be giving you arcane, or the blue rarity, the magic rarity items. And if we go over here and scrap one of them, we could see how many you get per item. So let's do this one at a time. Get about 2 per item, which means you're going to need about 8 blue items. Now, hopefully around this time in the game, you've already gotten a couple of them already. Before we scrap any of these things, we're going to just double check. As you can see, this gives us vitality and life per hit. So if I equip this, I should see my toughness go up, and I believe my recovery as well. That on, our recovery went up, and our toughness went up. And we have intelligence and vitality, so this should boost my damage and my toughness. And damage went up, toughness went up. Still pretty good on my weapon. I'm not going to look through these too thoroughly. We're just going to go ahead and scrap and salvage these. Now, at this point in the game, if you have the challenge rift cache, everything's great. You can go over here and go to train and just spam this up. And as you can see, there's that dreaded phrase that I keep doing. But if you look over here, it will tell you that the increase of the maximum level of crafted items from 15 to 20. So when you go to craft these items, they're between level 1 and level 15, I believe. All of these will say requires level 1 now because we got that thing in the altar. So this allows us to equip things that are above our current player level. So we're at level 19. If we go over here and train this once, we can get level 20 items. Train it again, we're at level 25 items. One more time, level 30 items. Even if you can find level 30 items in the game at this point, you would not be able to equip them, but with that altar node unlocked, we can now equip level 30 items. Now we still have to be able to craft them. So if I close all of these, and let's say I wanted chest armor, these are some of the plans that I found earlier, but we're going to pretend like we don't have them. We can see right here, I can click that, and it costs 7 veiled crystals, 11 arcane dust, and 11 reusable parts. Now we do have access to this right now, but for most people in the game, you probably wouldn't have that at this point, so we would not be able to craft this. And if you go lower, you see the cost is a little bit lower. Now these veiled crystals aren't too difficult to find, so I would recommend with just a 1 difference between the arcane dust and the reusable parts, just to craft the highest thing that you can. Okay, so that being said, we would normally level this character up to a higher point. I do not want to create a teach me level 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, because I would likely die over and over again. I do not play hardcore on this game very often. On console, I do play some hardcore characters. They're really fun, and it adds a level of excitement. But with this, as you can see, man, I've really got to stop saying that. With this, if you look over here, you see that I did a level 17 necromancer on a solo character, and then I created this guy, Dead Cool. Finally managed to get him to level 70. Did it in 1 try. I got incredibly lucky with some of the items that I found and didn't get into too many dangerous situations. So let's just pop over here and see what he's got on him. We're in master difficulty. Okay. So let's pull up his stats. So since the blacksmith over here is level 12, Rank 12, we're able to craft sages and other items like that. Now, if we look at the sage set, it gives us 250 strength, dexterity, intelligence, and vitality. These intelligence and vitality boost our toughness quite a bit, so I'm going to remove that. You see I'm at 3 million. And if I put on these boots, you go up to 5 million. Now, this is a 2-piece bonus, so as long as I have 2 of these on, it should still give me that big boost. So let's pull this off, see what we get. We're at 3 million. Now we're at 1.8 million. So having these items on boosts my toughness incredibly, and it also gives me double the amount of death breaths that drop. This makes collecting death breath a lot easier. As you can see, oh, not going to say that dreaded phrase. If you look over here, you will find, man, I really lean on that phrase a lot, don't I? You'll find that I have 22 death breath, which is not a lot and doesn't let us do a whole lot for crafting. So we're going to go over to a higher level character for the rest of our tips. Switch. We're going to go to, let's see. We're going to go over to our God Hunter character. Select him or her. Now we don't have to worry about those pesky deaths. So let's talk leveling tips and tricks. So I'm going to go over to our handy dandy forge guy over here. On this character, we see that I have a lot of bounty materials and a good amount of reusable parts, arcane dust, and field crystals. Our death breath is crazy high right now. That's because the Altar of Rites gives us a double death breath, and usually I put the Sage's set on my follower, which gives me double that as well. Then we go through a lot of visions and portals, so this just stacks up like crazy. It makes collecting death breath a breeze. A few primordial ashes from leftovers items, and a good amount of forgotten souls. So, in order to understand what makes up our character, we need to figure out how our characters do damage, what items to equip, and why. We're going to go over to our handy dandy crafting dude. We're just going to craft 4 belts at the start to just look at some stuff here. Okay. So let's look through these one by one. This is currently comparing with what I have on right now. Now, when you see with the crafted belts, we have the armor rating, which is 810. We have our primary skills, which is dexterity, or primary additions. Dexterity, vitality, armor, increased bola damage, and then our secondary, which is arcane resistance and thorns damage. Now, almost all the time, you don't really care about the secondary. If you get 2 items and they happen to be almost identical with the primary stats, then you would want to look at the secondary, but that rarely happens, if ever. Now, that plus 353 armor is what's showing our armor number of 810 at the top. So if we were to go to the enchanting place and roll that 353 armor off, that armor at the top would also change. Let's go do that now. I'm going to click on armor, and we're going to hit replace. All right, so we have 350 armor or 9% life. We're going to put on 9% life to roll that armor off. And then we could see that our armor rating at the top is 457. So if you ever see something with a really high armor rating at the top, it's a pretty fair guess that it's probably got an armor tag on it in the primary skill below. So let's look at some of these other belts we've got. We have dexterity, vitality, resist, armor. Dexterity, vitality, resist, increased bola damage, and vitality, resist to all armor and regenerate life per second. So let's say you were to get one of these 4 belts in the game, and you were wondering, hey, out of all of these things, they're pretty similar. Which one do I want to equip and why? Well, that has to do with our damage and our toughness rating. So I'm actually going to go ahead and remove all of this gear that we have here so we can get a fair comparison with our ratings. So let's go do that now. Okay, so I've removed everything on, and you might notice over here I still have a fair amount of damage, toughness, and recovery. So where is that coming from? Well, we see I have a lot of dexterity and I have a lot of vitality right here, despite having absolutely nothing equipped. That's coming from our Paragon. So if we go over here, we see that I have 80 dexterity points or Paragon points put in here, and all the rest of these are maxed out. So let's reset those. And we're going to reset each of these little trees. Right? When I do that, again, I still have some damage and toughness. Our recovery's gone down. So where is this damage and toughness coming from? In order to answer that, we have to go over to Act 1 and look at the Altar of Rites. Okay. So if we look through the altar, we'll go here. We've started out with the gateway node, then we got our items have no level requirements. Once you get a little bit more, I believe this one is 10 death breath and a greater rift key. So that will give us our 10% movement speed. And as we continue along the altar, we get health globes, increase your highest elemental skill damage bonus, double the amount of bounty caches that drop, critical hits grant resource, gain immunity, pets pickup and salvage, common magic and rare items, increased damage done to bosses, increased damage done to elites, progress orbs from Nephilim and greater rifts are picked up automatically, reduce the damage taken from elites, gain pass ability, increase your chance to dodge, double the chance to find a legendary item, 5% melee damage reduction, which is going to be added to our toughness. So that's where we're getting some of our toughness from. 5% damage. That's going to be increasing our damage. Double the amount of death breath that drop. 5% damage. Let's pick up death breath. Elite packs drop 1 additional progress orb. And to be honest, I did not realize that these two are right next to each other. Plus 100 damage. Pools of reflection last for the entire season and are not removed by death. Then 5% missile damage reduction. So all of these things together are what's giving us this little bit of damage and a good amount of toughness. And then of course at the bottom here, when you have your primordial shards, you can get these potions. These are tied to our potion down here. Whenever we click the potion, we get a random shine effect. All enemies within 25 yards deal 25% less damage. And you manifest one of 3 runic circles on the ground that grant increased damage, increased cooldown reduction, or increased resource cost reduction. So let's go ahead and look at that. Okay, now when we stand in one of these pools, we get, I believe, mana recovery from the altar. They don't last very long, but the red one does boost your damage significantly. So standing in that red circle will help you out. If you look at the bottom here, we also got that random shrine effect. You move faster with an increased pickup radius. 2 minutes left. So we should be moving around just a little bit quicker because of this. All right, back to talking about the items. So if we were to look at each of these, we would see that this one is giving us dexterity, vitality, and life. So let's equip it and see what happens to our damage and our toughness. All right, so our damage goes up a little bit because our dexterity is increased. Our toughness goes up 95,571. What was that before? Let's see, 18,000. I am not sure why it's giving us this health thing. I think it has to do with the total amount of vitality we've added, and we haven't got any regeneration. So since we aren't regenerating anything, it lowers our health pool. So let's put in some regeneration and see what happens. Life regeneration. Yeah, put in a couple of those, and this starts filling back up. So, we could do this in a rough way, which is just looking down at the bottom, stat changes if equipped. So we see we get 0.3% damage, 13% more toughness, and 26% more recovery. Here we're losing a little bit of damage, but we're getting more toughness and recovery. And then over here, we see we lose a lot of damage, far more toughness and recovery. So if we were to just do this on the surface level, we'd say, okay, well, this one's obviously better. So let's switch it over. Hey, we got more toughness. Great. But that doesn't quite tell you the whole picture when it comes to these items, because there are other things that we can enchant off. So this is dexterity, vitality, resist, and armor. We get armor with our dexterity. So our dexterity is going to boost the amount of armor we receive. And if you look over and hover over dexterity, it shows you it's the primary attribute for demon hunters and monks. Increases all damage for demon hunters and monks by, in this case, 615%. And increase your armor by 615. Okay? So, on the surface level, that armor doesn't really do very much for us. This resistance to all does, but if we were on a different character that has intelligence, we can see that if we stack intelligence, we get more resistances. So each of these has something that you want on the item. In that case, we don't really care too much about this armor. We care a lot about this resistance. Well, let's look and see what the max resistance we can get. Between 86 and 90. So this is on the low end for the resistance, but we're only adding a little bit more by rolling this resistance higher. So we don't want to roll this resistance off. The vitality can be up to 415. We're at 389. That's pretty middle ground. And then the dexterity, 350, 415, again, fairly middle ground. So for this kind of belt, rolling this dexterity and vitality higher could help, but the chances of getting that are fairly low. So the only option for us to do is to roll off this armor. But before we do that, let's see if there's something over here that's more important to us. We see we can roll life. We can get 14% increase to our life. We can get life per second, which is that regeneration ability. Or we can get evasive fire damage, increased grenade damage, entangling shot, hungering arrow, and bolas. So for our build that we had with all of that other gear on there, we do hungering arrow damage. So every single time we fire one of these hungering arrows, we fire them with our strafe ability. Increasing this would increase our standard damage. So if I go to re-roll this, I'm going to say I would like to have hungering arrow damage, or I would like to have life. Let's go ahead and hit re-roll. You see that we get life per second, which at least does something for us. And it changes our recovery there. There's 11% life. So let's see what that does for our toughness and recovery over here. All right, we've gone up a couple more thousand and we got a little bit more recovery. Now this life thing is based off of our vitality. If you look over here, increases life, allowing more damage to be taken before dying. Each point of vitality increases life by 100. So we have 536 vitality, which is going to roughly translate to about 59,000 because I believe we do have some of those altar things that are affecting it as well. So we're getting a little bit more out of it. So if we equip another item on here that has vitality, that'll boost this number, which is going to increase our overall life. And then our plus 11% life is going to boost that further. So let's go and do that now. And armor. And let's go ahead and try out a chest piece. Okay. So we get vitality, armor, regenerates, life, and then we have 3 sockets down here. If you click on the sockets, despite these being on the bottom, this does affect a primary skill ability. So even though they're under the secondary slot, this is a primary one. And we decided that armor isn't really all that valuable to us, so we can go ahead and roll this into dexterity or life. And none of these abilities over here help us too much. We do have Fan of Knives on our bar, but we're not doing active damage with it, so it does not make sense to increase the damage of our Fan of Knives. We're going to go ahead and enchant this. We got more life. Let's click that on. And let's bring you back. So when we equip this, we should boost our vitality right here, and the plus 11% and plus 8% should add to a plus 19% life. So let's go ahead and put that on and see where we're at for our toughness. Now we're at 248,000 toughness. And if you look at our life pool, it got bigger and it's regenerating up to fill that out. 107,000 total amount of life that we have right now. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and go over and craft a bunch of yellow gear for the rest of our character. Now we've got a kind of basic idea of what we want to have happening. Okay, we've got all of our items on. We're just going to get rid of that little highlight there. And we're going to bring them back over to the Enchantress. So if you look over here, you'll find that we have 2,667 damage and about 2,821,000 recovery or toughness. Sorry, 77,000 recovery. So if we go through our items one by one, we can start tweaking them. We've already tweaked our belt over here, and we've tweaked our armor to be something that's somewhat useful for us. Now, I personally don't really care for the regenerates 2,880 life per second, so I'd keep an eye out for a chest piece that does a little bit more, perhaps something that has dexterity and vitality on top of it, and then I can roll off whatever third thing I need. So we could definitely get a better armor. Let's go ahead and do our gloves. So our gloves have pretty decent stats. We have dexterity and vitality. This is providing us with more damage and more life. And then we have these new stats, which is reduce all resource costs by 6% and chance to deal 12% area damage on hit. So these resource costs, if you were to go and fire a skill, which I'm going to have a weapon on to do. So let's go ahead and craft a weapon for us real quick. And since we're here, we might as well get a quiver as well. Okay. So when I'm firing a primary ability, my hatred and discipline do not change. In this case, it would be hatred. If I start channeling, it goes down. So that means that using strafe cost resource. You can see in this case, it cost 12 hatred. So if I equip something that reduces the resource cost, it should cost a little bit less. So I'm not sure if we can find out exactly how much we're losing in this game. But what we can do is go over to our details. And let's see if we can find resource cost reduction in here. There we go, under resource. See our maximum hatred's 150. Hatred regeneration, we regenerate 5.33 a second, and our hatred cost reduction is 6%. Currently, we do not have a whole lot of resource cost reduction. So we can stack that up if we need to. This is great for builds that are constantly draining your resources and you need more. Because of the altar, if we do a critical hit, we gain some more resource. So that explains that resource cost reduction. This one, chance to deal 12% area damage on hit. This is a little bit confusing, but essentially you always have a standard chance to deal area damage. Let's see if we can find it right here. So all attacks have a 20% chance to deal 23% of the damage to enemies within 10 yards. Damage dealt can be increased by items. This is a little bit confusing, but every single time we shoot the shot, let's say it doesn't trigger, you deal your normal standard damage. Now let's say it procs the area damage. Okay. In this case, it would do within a 10-yard range, all of the enemies would be hit for the total amount of area damage that you can do. In this case, it's 23%. So let's go ahead and click on this and roll it to something else. Area damage 23%. Our area damage is 11%. So that means we're going to be doing less damage in that area. Now in this case, our critical hit chance got up. We're at 20% for the critical hit chance. So if you're doing a lot of area damage and you stack a lot of area damage in your build, it's really great for something that's trying to clear an entire area or an entire room. In this case, the Demon Hunter that I'm playing does do a lot of area damage, so I would want to stack this up as much as I possibly could. If I look over here, I see I can get attack speed, armor, critical hit damage, regenerates life per second, critical hit chance, chance to deal area damage on hit, life per hit, and reduce cooldown of all skills by 4 to 7%. So now you may be wondering, okay, well, all of these seem pretty good, and when I look up how to play a build, they tell me that I could use any one of these things. Well, what's the priority, right? Which one of these things is more important? And that's kind of a difficult thing to say. But a lot of people who are very, very good at math have decided to calculate and say, okay, well, if we add critical hit chance, we hit more often with critical hits. Since we're hitting more often with critical hits, it makes sense to stack our critical hit damage, because that's going to boost our overall damage that we deal with a critical hit. Now let's see. You can see that critical hits deal 50% bonus damage and can be increased by items. So if we stack our critical hit damage up, that's going to make it so we're constantly doing, I believe it'd be, 155,000 damage per hit. But this isn't the only thing that's increasing our damage. We have Hungering Arrow damage is being increased over here. And if our Hungering Arrow damage is cold, as you can see, it shows cold damage there. And anything that increases our cold damage also is impacted by that as well. So, not sure where you can find our, there we go. Cold resistances. Should be a way for me to see exactly where it is. I might just be running over it, my eyes over and over again. Okay. So critical hit chance is something that's valuable to us. We don't have critical hit damage on here. And since we don't have critical hit damage on here, it may make more sense to roll this into something like area damage. But we'll keep it on critical hit chance right now until we go through the rest of these items. When we go over here, we see we have dexterity, vitality, chance to deal 11% area damage on hit. So that must be where our other area damage is. And increased spike trap damage. Now the standard rule of thumb here is it doesn't matter what the rest of these things are. If you ever find something that is not used whatsoever by your build, roll it off. So as soon as I see something like this, I don't really care what it goes to. I'm going to roll it off. I could put Phantom Knives, but again, we don't really do damage with it, but regenerating life does help. So I'm going to switch to that. If I want to see what I could roll to, I'm going to click on this and I'm going to see if there's anything on here that's more important. We see we get cooldown of all skills, resource costs, life, armor, and life per second. Out of all of these things, the one that's going to help me out the most is reduce cooldown of all skills. So I'm going to aim for that. Resource costs, I'll take over that. Resource costs, keep. Reduce cooldown of all skills. Put that on there. Now my cooldown reduction has gone a little bit higher. Okay, elemental arrow damage, we do not care about that. Dexterity helps us, so we're going to put it on. Again, I could look over here and say, is there anything over here that's more important than the dexterity? If not, should go through here. Physical skills deal 10% more damage. Dexterity, resist to life. Physical skills, I do cold damage. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this. There's vitality. Now, maybe on the level that I'm currently playing at, I don't die very often. It might make more sense for me to do more damage rather than roll that vitality on there. In this case, I'm going to keep it temporarily. I'm going to look for something else that is going to be of use to me. So there's more vitality there, so we'll take it. Cold skills. We're going to roll that on. Okay, and now that I've got something that does cold damage, we can see that my increased damage dealt by skills using this element, 153,900. So this is very significant. And something else that's going to be a primary damage dealer for us. Let's go ahead and check this guy out. We have dexterity, vitality, resistance, hungering arrow damage. Okay, I like all of these. But now I might want to see if I can roll something higher. We see that 415 is the max dexterity and I'm at 408. Great. 406 is the max vitality. 415, sorry, is max vitality. Pretty close there. Resistance, I lucked out and hit the max. Well, what about my hungering arrow damage? Okay, we see that I can get 15% there, and I'm only at 8, which is the lowest end. So it makes the most sense for me to go ahead and roll this off into something that will be higher. Now, if I get 2 sockets, I may want to switch over to that because sockets are highly valuable. So 2 sockets, I'll put those on here for now. And we'll go over that in a minute. Okay, and then last we have our boots for our main things. Strafe damage. We have strafe, but strafe is shooting our hungering arrows, so our actual strafe doesn't do any damage. So we go ahead and roll that off. There's dexterity, put it on. Okay. We see it after doing that real quick with just our armor, we've boosted our toughness significantly and our damage has gone up. Part of our damage isn't being shown here simply because I believe, yeah, dual wielding attack speed increases, all that kind of stuff. Maybe it is showing here. I thought it didn't count critical hits, but it looks like it does seem to count critical hits. Okay. Now we're going to throw in our weapon. So this main thing is what's contributing to this damage up here, and we can roll this to a higher rate if we want to. But I usually don't mess with this unless a build specifically tells me to change this to, cold damage, fire damage, whatever it is. This is adding plus 5% to this, which is why we have that large number up there. And we have our dexterity and life per hit. So if we look at our life per hit, we can see that we can roll into attack speed, vitality, area damage, increased damage against elites, life per hit, reduce cooldown of all skills, reduce all resource costs, chance to inflict bleed, and weapon damage over 5 seconds. Now, the last thing they have there is a socket, and a socket can add a tremendous amount of damage to your build. However, there is an item in this game called Ramalani's Gift, and if I were to roll this into something else, so let's roll this into, let's shoot for either attack speed or area damage. Take vitality just because I like it. There's area damage. Okay. So we've rolled that into there. Now, if I have a Ramalani's Gift, I can go and get it, equip it onto my character. I'm not sure if I do. I'm just checking. Okay, I have 3. It's kind of a waste to use this on a yellow item. I recommend saving these for your main weapon that you're going to be using in the game. But we can click on it, and we've added a socket, and we have not taken away any of these 4 stats on our primary abilities. So it allows us to roll something into a valuable stat and get a socket at the same time. The reason you want this socket is in particular for things like these emeralds. And we can level these up at the jewelry over there, jeweler. But we're just going to take one of those and put it in. But before we do, we're going to pull this up and look at our critical hit damage. It's at 50%. And our damage is at 140,000. Our critical hit damage is at 160%. And our damage is at 169,000. So this socket is incredibly valuable. And if we look at the rest of our build, remember, we really need resistances because our dexterity is boosting our armor quite a bit. So out of all of these gems, you can see for the other items or the other category, this adds vitality. This adds dexterity, intelligence, and strength. So we might want these on some other characters depending what we have for our defenses. This one adds resistance to all elements. So if we look at our toughness, we're at 3,963,000. Let's go ahead and put that in there. And now we are all the way up to 5,754,000 just by putting a couple low rank gems in there. We haven't even leveled these up all the way. If we wanted more toughness, we could level up these gems to be a flawless emerald gem or a flawless diamond gem. But we don't really need to do that for this demonstration. And we also have a socket up here. And if we hover over the gems, we see that if these are equipped in a weapon or a helm, they do something different. So let's look at the helms. This one reduces cooldown of all skills by 11%, 20% life, 35% extra gold from monsters, reduce all resource costs by 11%, and 35% experience. However, this is translated to 3.5% at level 70. Now, when I first started playing this game on console, there was no parenthesis box here showing that this is only 3.5% at level 70, which means this is really only useful when you're leveling up to 70 to get that huge boost in experience. At level 70, it basically makes more sense to do any of these other things. So all of our builds down here at the bottom have a cooldown on them. This is cooldown 10 seconds, cooldown 45 seconds. This one costs discipline, and this is cooldown 90 seconds. So we want to put that in and get our cooldown reduction going. And these should cool down a little bit faster. I'm not sure if this is only showing the base time, however, versus how long it takes to actually cool it down, because this should be calculating at a little bit of a reduced rate because of our cooldown reduction. So in terms of items, when you're leveling up, you just want to make sure you have enough gold to roll some of these into something that's actually useful for you. Doing this is going to boost your toughness tremendously, and of course will boost your damage and recovery as well. This will allow you, if you're barely struggling to do, let's say, Torment 10, this should allow you to get up to Torment 11, or at the very least breeze through the Torment 10 difficulty that you're currently on. Once you get a full set of gear going, so let's go ahead and equip our stuff that we had earlier back on. There we go. And it goes there. Royal diamonds. I'm not sure why this popped up over here. Those away. And let's salvage these belts that are no longer needed. Okay. So you see that we now have 1.9 million damage, 44 million toughness, and 928,000 recovery. And we see our dexterity is now at 18,222. If when we look at our details, my critical hit damage is now at 510%, and my critical hit chance is at 35%. My attack speed is at 15%. So these are the kind of main stats that are contributing to a lot of my damage right here. And of course, I also have a good amount of cooldown reduction and a good amount of cold damage and hungering arrow damage increase. So if I were to go over here to the enchanting, I were to look at all of these things, we would see that this little circle, I'm not sure quite what it is showing what I've rolled to enchant and what I'm getting. This one up here does not have anything. It says dexterity, vitality, resistance, reduce cooldown of all skills. So this one doesn't have anything. Well, let's see how close we are to the cap. See, our dexterity is pretty high. Our vitality is pretty good. Our resistance is close to the max. Our cooldown could be a little bit higher. But what else can we roll here that's anything useful? Life, armor, area damage, cooldown. So we don't really need any more life. We're pretty tanky in these areas. We definitely don't need armor. We don't need regeneration. We could say our chance to deal 20% area damage would deal more damage for us. But this cooldown is helping out with this vengeance over here and is allowing me to activate it a little bit faster. So when we use this, we turn into the physical embodiment of vengeance for 20 seconds. We gain 4 additional piercing shots for 60% weapon damage as lightning each on every attack. We shoot 2 rockets at nearby enemies for 80% weapon damage. And we gain 40% increased damage. So although that extra area damage would be good, it just can't compete with what vengeance is currently offering. And the more often we have this up, the better. So with that being said, we're going to actually see if we can roll this into a higher cooldown, and look at that. We got a little bit higher cooldown. Okay, we have dexterity, vitality, and armor. Now over here, we see I made a mistake, right? On this item, I rolled off, I'm assuming was something else, right? It's something that didn't apply to the build. And I put on vitality, but I would rather have rolled off this armor. Now, this armor is doing a little something for me, but this dystopian goggles is not a very good one for me to have equipped. So I would ideally like to find something better. So let me check my stash here. We're going to type in dystopian. And we see we have another one here. This one is our good one. We have dexterity, armor, critical hit chance increased. If we look at the bottom, we see that I'm losing a little bit of toughness. Let me look over here so see it better. I'm gaining 10% damage, I'm losing a little bit of toughness, and I'm gaining a little bit of recovery. Now, I like this because it's also an ancient item, and ancient items are more useful than regular items. Not only because they have higher stats on them on average, but because we can augment them here. I'm going to go ahead and put that on. And I'm going to make sure that I also put on this gem right here. Okay. So that's a little bit better for us. And again, I still don't like this one all that much, simply because we have a stat on there that doesn't really help us, which is the armor stat. So I'm going to keep an eye out for a better ancient item to equip on there. So we've talked a little bit about gems. Let's talk about another important gem, which is the legendary gems. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to remove each of these gems that I have. We're going to take a look at them. So we see that we have numbers on them that indicate the level they're at. This increases damage against enemies under the effects of control impairing effects by 24%. And then at rank 25, you gain an aura that reduces the movement speed of enemies within 15 yards by 30%. We have gained 3.16% increased damage for 1.5 seconds when you spend resource on a channeled skill. In this case, would be our strafe. It affects stacks up to 10 times, and then you gain 2% increased armor for every stack. Then our last one is increase the damage of primary skills by 64%. Hits with primary abilities heal you for 4% of your maximum health. So let's put in Taguk, and let's see if any of this is changed over here, the damage toughness. And we see that nothing is changed. Well, part of the reason for that is because, hey, we have to channel something. So as soon as we start channeling, you see that our damage all of a sudden is going up, and our toughness is now at 118,000. As we stop, this will start to go away and go back down to 40 million. This one, right, increases damage against enemies, so we need to demonstrate this near an enemy. And then this one is our primary skills. Let's see, we have 2 million damage, and we're still at 2 million damage. So despite the fact that this little stat thing helps you, it cannot show us what all of these gems are actually capable of until we go out and fight something. So let's go to my favorite place, Temple of the Firstborn. And something else to keep in mind over here. It says your primary skills still increase damage. This happens when I fire an ability. It's going to count down. So let's go ahead and start firing. And we see that despite this going up, I still am not getting any increase to the damage here. So there are some hidden stats. Now we see our damage is fluctuating based on all of the enemies that are around here. And let's see if we can find a good little bit here. Okay, so this should be about our standard damage when actually fighting is 2,800,000 and 118 million, toughness. When enemies go away, this number should decrease.
I need to go back.
So the last thing that we need to discuss is our Paragon. And we can't have this out while we put in Paragon, which is a little bit frustrating. But let's go ahead and start with utility. We're going to increase our area damage and all of these other stats as well. Over here, you can see that we can only put in 50 points for our utility category. And for most of these Paragon things, they cap at 50 points. Part of the reason for that is because if these things just kept going up, people would stack this pickup radius to make it so the whole screen would be your gold pickup radius. They'd probably just focus on cooldown reduction as well, so you could just keep spamming all of your high level skills. So to balance the game, it makes sense to cap some of these at 50 points. I'm gonna put all these in. Which takes forever. Probably a faster way to do this. Ah, look at that. Just found out if you hold down Control and hit the click button, it does it 50, all of the maximum amount.
What?
Yeah, very fast. Okay. And then our last one over here does not have a cap, which means as we keep gaining Paragon levels, we can stack this in as much as we want to. So if you ever feel like, hey, I'm dying just a little bit too much, go ahead and put a couple of points into Vitality. Or if you want more damage, go ahead and stack it up with Dexterity. And then if we look at our character over here, we see that our toughness and our damage has increased because of those points. So to finish up the enchanting piece, we're going to go ahead and look at a item on here that is relatively perfect.
That would not be wise.
We're in the transmogrify. We want to be in the enchanting. So as you can see, I rolled this to critical hit chance increased by 10%. And we can see we get 1,000 dexterity, 100% critical hit damage, and 10% critical hit chance. Now, this should have been equipped on me earlier. I think with my armory, I did not save it after getting this thing over, so it pushed me back to the other thing. So I'm going to go and find out where my other squirt went. It has my gem in there that I need. There you are. Go ahead and go back. Okay. So this is an ideal thing to find. It would be great if we found this on our own, just out in the world. But we did craft this by taking a normal squirt and using some of our primordial ashes to forge this into a primal item, which is why it looks completely red all around. Now you can only equip one of these, so it makes sense to have your crafted primal item be either your amulet or one of your weapons, as those are the things that are going to boost your damage the most. So to finish off our little piece here, I do see that this critical hit damage is only at 33%, and it can roll as high as 50%. 44%. There we go. That's much better. How's our other one? It's also on 44%. I haven't rolled anything off of this yet, however. So let's look at our critical hit chance. We could get up to 6%. 4.5 is on the very low end. So why not try and roll that a little bit higher? And there we go, 6%. Just having those two things right there has boosted our critical hit chance to be almost 50%. And our critical hit damage is at 589%. Now, if we wanted to, we could even try and roll this up to be the exactly 50% by rolling this a little bit higher. But I don't think we'll be able to get it without spending a large amount of resources. So we're just kind of doing this as a, hey, let's see what we get sort of thing. All right, 5.5, that's a little bit more. Why not? We'll take it. So occasionally you can come back here and enchant your items and just try and get a little bit higher compared to what you got earlier. So that wraps up the enchanting piece. If you have this knowledge in the back of your mind as you continue to level up your character, it should make the process so much smoother and easier for you to transition into a higher difficulty. So if you're on Torment 10, let's boost it to Torment 11. Torment 11, let's boost it to Torment 12. And I wouldn't spend too much time crafting in the beginning, because as you get legendary or ancient items, they're going to replace a lot of these. And the reason we want ancient items is because only on ancients and primals are we able to augment our gear. So before we jump into augmenting, I want to touch a little bit more in terms of priority of what you should be doing. When you level up your character, after getting level 19 and getting those 2 diamonds to put into your altar of rites, it allows you to equip item levels at any item level. So you should be coming over to an area like this, which has a lot of monsters, and killing every single one of them. Now, we already went through this area earlier, so there isn't too much right now. But as we continue to go through, we should get a lot more. So we're going to do a little bit of this, start up our massacre. You can see we're hitting for 350 billion damage occasionally here. We'll also hit for like 44 million, and then those critical hits stack up. So we can either hit for 44 million or somewhere around like 830 billion, I think is one of the highest numbers that I've seen on here. Okay, we don't care about the chests. Just gonna make sure we can go around and find as many monsters as possible. Okay. So, leveling up a character from scratch, this is primarily what you would be doing, is just going to these areas, finding as many monsters as you can, try and get your score streak or your kill streak up, and running through and killing monsters. Let's say you run out of monsters and it's all over. Okay, leave game. And after you leave the game, you're going to jump back in and try and do the exact same area over and over again until you can get to level 70. So obviously we're not hardcore characters. We don't care about that death. Could have stopped it. Didn't really feel like it. So then we would load back in, Temple of the Firstborn, and go to this area again and start over leveling up your character. Now, as you do this, you should be starting at level 20. Once you go through the area one time, you should be exiting around level 25, 30-ish or so. And then I want to say you want to go up about at least a couple levels each time you go through this area. If you keep your score streak up and you get up to 400, then it should get higher and higher. If you ever see one of these visions, do not go into them in the beginning, because they're so dangerous and they're so time consuming. By the time you finish one of these visions of enmity, you would have most likely have gone up 10 levels. As you go up levels, your legendary items that you can achieve or get unlock more often and more rapidly. So the goal is to get to 70. We don't care about anything in here. I myself can't resist the temptation, so anytime I see one of these things, I like to go in here and I like to die over and over and over again until I get some of the items I need. Now, it does help me get some stats and materials. Normally, I would recommend only going in here if you're killing enemies in the outside area relatively easily. So if everything's dying in 1 or 2 hits, then okay, go through some of these things, because going through an area shouldn't take longer than a few seconds to go through and kill everything. Now, this might be something that you would do once you actually got your build going. Once you get your build going and you've got all of the damage and toughness, then go ahead and come through here and kill everything. There's a lot more items dropping that's just hard to notice, these yellows and blues, because our pet is walking around salvaging all of that stuff. And as we walk or go through an area killing enemies, our pet's killing it all. We got a consumable, which is going to be one of these angelic crucibles, which is a season item. As you can see, I've got a lot of those. Alright, and our pets pick up those death breath, so we don't got to worry about that. And this is why I have so much death breath. Going into one of these areas, killing it all, pets pick it up, and then I go to the next area. Hey, look at that. We got another Ramalani's gift to replace the one we used earlier. How kind. And another Ramalani's gift. Okay. Game's being extra generous to me today. Alright. So, if we ever ran into a place where there was a Greater Rift Guardian, and let's say, you know, we've already gone through 5 or 6 of these visions, as you go through them, they get more and more difficult when you go through the next portal. And those Rift Guardians might be almost impossible to kill or would simply be way too time consuming. So it makes sense to look around for the extra monster that's in there. You'll see 3 Greater Rift Guardians, and then there'll be 1 other lone monster somewhere in the area. If you kill that, it'll give you a vision to the next area. In this case, we had the Goblin, so there would be no possible chance for us to get this chest. So we might just focus on trying to kill the Goblin, opening it up, and then running through and grabbing these bounty materials and Greater Rift Keystones.
I am returning to town.
Now, on this character, it doesn't matter. We can kill through all of these things absolutely no problem. And we got quite a bit of items from that. Okay. So I do know that I use the Unhallowed Essence set, so occasionally I'll look out for some enchanted items there. For the other sets, I don't particularly care about them all that much, so I just ignore them. But you might want to look through here and say, okay, is there anything that could be possibly useful or used on another character? Maybe it's something you give your follower like this, and then just scrap the rest. Now, tip for scrapping on the PC is if you click this, you have to move your cursor over here and do this each time, which isn't too time consuming, but it can be a little bit annoying. So if you just double tap enter while clicking on these things, and then you don't have to move your cursor over, and it speeds it up just a little bit more. Although it's annoying that I keep opening the party over there. Now, after you've gotten to level 70, then you want to start focusing on the season journey, which, as you can see over here, we've already done. Some of these things are relatively easy. Anytime you see something that says kill Skeleton King or kill Sadia, you have to do Acts 1 through 5 bounties anyway, so it makes sense to restart your game and wait until you get a kill Skeleton King, and then just do all of the Act 1 bounties, right? Or if it says kill Sadia and do all of the Act 3 bounties, I believe that's where Sadia is. Because that'll help you out for this third one. Obtain Act 1 bounty cache, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, and Act 5. When it says extract a legendary power, only do this if you have something that actually does some damage or helps you out. So this could be a defensive item or this could be an offensive item. In my case, right, I don't really extract anything much, but in the beginning of the game, I did get right here a Dawn. So I decided to extract it because this does something for me. I've gotten a couple more of these other weapons that don't really do anything, so I didn't bother wasting my death breath on them. After you've completed the season journey, if you're going to continue on that character, it makes absolute sense to continue to open these pieces up. So you would get 2 of these in the beginning for completing the Act 2, Chapter 2 of the season journey. If I were to be doing this on a Demon Hunter, I would get 4 seconds of momentum when attacking with a primary skill at a maximum duration of 20 seconds. This duration begins counting down after a delay of 5 seconds after each application, and then your primary skills deal 10% increased damage per second of momentum. So you can see at the bottom of the screen here, I have some of the stuff from the Squirt's Necklace and Plotting Vengeance. If I go to attack, this is momentum. So that's 40% damage, 80%, 120%, right? I believe, and there's 200% increased damage, if I'm reading that right. 10% increased damage per second of momentum. Yeah. So at the maximum stacks, I get 200% increased damage to my primary skills. And then if I wait, it'll start counting down and I do a little bit less. So there it goes. Now I'm at 170 damage, 160, 150, and so on. So I want to make sure I'm still firing this every now and then. And as long as I'm spinning around, it'll automatically stay up. Then, as long as you can complete Act 3, you will get something that usually, for each set, keeps you alive. So in this case, it would be strafing against enemies will automatically shoot your last used primary skill and also give you 60% damage reduction while strafing. For 5 seconds after, while strafing, you gain 8% increased movement speed for each second of momentum. Now, because the skill's primary damage is behind that 6th set bonus, right, 27,500% increased damage, all this is allowing us to do is when we strafe, shoot out our primary ability, which does deal more damage. But if we aren't equipping something like a Depth Diggers, which gives us more damage, or we have a good weapon that's going to increase our damage, or we mess with our stats, we're not doing too much. So it almost makes more sense to use some other legendary abilities or legendary items with a Legacy of Dreams until we get that 6th set bonus. This is why I like playing on the necromancer. So let me go ahead and switch over to the necromancer. Let's see, I believe it's this one. Yes. So this is the necromancer that I used to complete the season journey. And as you can see, we've got all of these Paragon points that I did not spend. Because at the time I only had, a couple 40, 50 levels, I believe. So each of these has a few points in there from that. And if we look at my gear, I took off the Sage's set and gave it to my stash. Or actually, in this case, it was the Guardian set. So let me go ahead and craft that and put that back on this character. So we've got belts. Okay, so this was exactly what we had on our character. Obviously, you'll get some different stats from these things, which we would go and change and roll off or enchant off. So previously, I believe I came over here and
That is not possible.
threw something in. On enchanting, there we go. All right, so like Grim Scythe, we don't do anything, so just roll this over. Armor, okay. Maybe I'll do one more. Armor is fine. On this character, we're intelligence, so we actually do need some armor because this is only helping with our resistances. And then each of these other ones, again, I would go and roll off to something that's a little bit better. So I don't really care about that movement speed at the top there. So I'm going to go ahead and switch that over to dexterity, or in this case, intelligence. You get more damage. So this is about what I had. Now, the reason why I like this Guardian set in particular is because if you look over here, it says your melee damage reduction is increased by 1% per 1,000 base vitality from equipped items, and your missile damage reduction is increased by 1% per 1,000 base intelligence for our build from equipped items depending on your class. And then the third set is you gain an additional 100% of your base intelligence and vitality attributes from equipped items. So all of these items have various intelligence and vitality and all that kind of stuff on there. So if this says we have 391 intelligence, it would instead be double that, which is what, about 740-ish, 750-ish, something like that. Intelligence, and our vitality would be around 826. So we get a huge boost to our toughness and our damage. See, our toughness is 53 million, which is very good for the difficulty we're on, Torment 6 difficulty that we're on. So let's remove one of these and see what it looks like. Our damage is 309 at 53 million. Now we go down to 12 million. So this third bonus is just tremendously helpful to us. So if you want to stay alive in the beginning and you want to do a lot more damage, go ahead and find a way to put the Guardian set on you. If you have a Ring of Royal Grandeur, you only need 2 of these. Now this right here, it says while above 90% primary resource, all damage taken is reduced by 50%. I have my resource up almost all the time on this character, so I left this on. I found this at a very low level, which is why the intelligence and vitality is extremely low on this. So One thing that I may want to do is go over to the cube and see what items I have here. I've only got the blood tide blade here, and I've got a blank spot for a armor and a ring. Now, at the time, I did have some death breath, so I could have put this in here and transmuted it. There it is. And then I can equip a high level chest piece for some more damage and vitality. So let's go ahead and look for a chest piece. All right, 51 million toughness, 306 damage, 64 million toughness, 326,000 damage. So just doing that saves us a lot of trouble. Now, let's go ahead and actually let's go somewhere different for you guys this time. Let's go over to the Halls of Agony. Okay. So, there we go. This is what our damage was like with the character with absolutely no set items on. You can see we do not have any gems in our items as well. And all of our damage is being done because of the Guardian set and because of two items, which is the Blood Tide Blade and this Iron Rose. If we had a Funerary pick, we would be doing even more damage. So, this difficulty is considered a joke, basically. You can just run through and hold down your main attack, and this will cast Blood Nova. So attacking with Siphon Blood has a 100% chance to cast a free Blood Nova. After cumulatively losing 10% of your maximum life, your Death Nova deals 48% increased damage for 60 seconds. This effect stacks up to 10 times. So let's find some enemies for us. Oh hey, we got a goblin somewhere. So, as you can see, we're not losing any life, so we're not able to get too much of that bonus. But because of the Blood Tide Blade, we are hitting a tremendous amount of Death Nova damage for that. And it's increased by every enemy within a certain amount of range for us. So, for this character, if I stuck with it, I could have equipped the set bonus from this one, which would have been the Masquerade of the Burning Carnival. I personally do not like this set bonus, and since I would have liked to have, leveled up on a faster character like the Demon Hunter, I chose not to do this. If this set that it gave me was Tragool, since I've already gotten most of the stuff for Tragool anyway, I may have just stuck it out with the Necromancer because I would have gotten to Greater Rift level 70 way faster, and I would have gotten probably to Greater Rift level 90 almost immediately. My next goal for this character would be to go over to get some blood shards, in this case I didn't collect any beforehand, and try and get a Funerary pick, or to try and level up a Funerary pick by upgrading. So, try it out 5 times, see what we get. I would just constantly go to those visions after getting my legendary gems up to at least 25. And then I would come over here and say, hey, give me a Funerary pick. And then the game says no. And I say, can you please give me a Funerary pick? The game says, hey, I already told you, you're getting the Tragool's Fang. And I get really irritated, and it gives me a Funerary pick. In this case, an ancient one to make up for all of that heartache earlier. So we have a Funerary pick now. Put that in. Both of these are level 70 weapons. And now, Siphon Blood drains blood from 2 additional targets. Each target takes 257% increased damage from you unless there's only 1 target. Then it gains double the increased damage. The bonus from Siphon Blood Power Shift is now 20% per stack and benefits all skills. So it's important that we really read and understand what that's saying. If we go to Siphon Blood, we could see we have the runes, power shift, says damage is increased by 10% each time damage is dealt, maximum at 10 stacks. So this now does 20%. And then in our little descriptor over there, it says benefits all skills. So that 20% bonus that we have is now going towards our Death Nova and our Siphon Blood there. So let's go ahead and change difficulties. I'm going to increase it significantly. We're going to go up to Torment 9. Now, again, this character does not have a single set item on him. So let's go over to that same area we were in before. And let's see how much damage we're doing now. And if we could even survive a hit. Okay. So we're doing incredible damage. We're actually surviving a pretty good amount of our hits as well, which is just incredible. If you look down at our Siphon Blood at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that it was maintaining a 10 thing. And if we stop attacking, it goes down significantly. So we want to make sure that we're constantly attacking. So we want to tap the skill occasionally. I don't know if we'll be able to get this goblin, so we're just going to do our best. There we go. Okay. So for this kind of character, once you got the Bloodtide Blade, the Iron Rose, and the Funerary Pick, you're pretty much good to go in this difficulty. We're at 131 million toughness and 450-ish thousand damage. And as long as there's a lot of enemies nearby, we are able to kill them relatively easily. Our health is pretty good. Let's actually like stand and get hit for a little bit there and see where we're at. Okay, so as you can see, you know, we're pretty good in terms of our health. And then as we attack, we get some more of that back. So for this kind of character, we're at Torment 10 already with just a couple of our weapons being put in there. But we don't have any gems that really boost our damage or anything like that. So my priority would be to run Greater Rifts. And I would just go over to the Greater Rift, select whatever level I'm on. Torment 10 in this case would be about a level 45 Greater Rift. So why not? Let's go ahead and start one out. Okay. So we've got a couple gems on our other characters. This time we got a Bane of the Powerful. So I would go ahead and upgrade that Bane of the Powerful. We would pretend like we didn't have any of these other gems. And then I would just immediately throw it in my character, whichever one has an empty slot. And that's going to boost our damage significantly. We got, looks like 4, maybe 3 items from there. I'm not sure if I got this Iron Rose from it earlier or not. And then we would get some blood shards. And with our blood shards, we would say, hey, okay, well, what do I need next? Maybe a chest piece. Hopefully I can get a set piece from it. And we get nothing but yellows. But maybe some of these yellows are better than the ones that we have. Quick little scan through. Shows that this gives us green all around. This one gives us a little bit more. So I would just equip that. But I am losing the sockets. So maybe I would enchant one of these things over to a socket, the 3 socket piece, so I could put some gems in there. So now we're going to talk about the final thing that we need to do in this game, and that is to augment our gear. Now, augmenting gear can only be done when you have a significant amount of gems to turn them into flawless royal gems. We go over here, we see that we've been collecting quite a bit, and we have a good amount. And you want to make it match the main stat that you want on your character. In this case, it'd be dexterity. So we know that the green gems, when put on items, armor, or anything else, gives you 100 dexterity. So we're going to go ahead and try and turn those into flawless royals. So let's go over here, and we're just going to craft a bunch of these at a time. Now, before we do augmenting, we use a petrified scream, so we want to get as many of these as we possibly can. Usually the standard rule of thumb is as soon as you get one, you want to go ahead and use them to get the item you need to augment. However, when you do a petrified scream, the further along you get, so if you die at, let's say, level 73 or level 83, then the augmented gem that you have will only add a level 73's worth dexterity to an item that you put it on. So if we can get over level 125, then that's going to be the maximum level we can achieve, or the maximum level gem that will drop for us. So we're going to go ahead and right click over our petrified scream and put it in here. Before doing this, since we want to make sure we can get to the highest level possible, we may want to make sure that our gems are leveled up fairly high. Let's say the highest greater rift that we can do is 90. Then that means in order to guarantee a chance of leveling up or ranking up the gem to the next level, you could do it up to gem rank 80. So this one is currently a rank 31. So ideally, before I go on this petrified scream, I would want to go around and level up all of my gems to rank 80, just to give me the most damage and health possible for my gems. Also want to make sure that I have the right passives selected in here, as there's certain passives and skills that are really useful for going through the bounty map areas and stuff, but aren't as useful in these petrified screams. So I'm not going to do any of that. Now, one mistake I made at the beginning was going around and seeing these pillars and clicking on them right away because I thought, cool, let's stack all of these up. But these pillars only spawn in once, and then they go away. And these monsters in the beginning are incredibly easy. You can see we're on tier 10, and we're just killing everything within 2 seconds. So it doesn't make sense to get all the power from those pillars, those pylons, until we get further along. If you see any of those exploding dudes, just follow them to the outside where you find a little, I'm not sure what you want to call it exactly. We'll just call them spawn pillars, and kill those, because if you don't, it'll keep spawning those little explodey dudes and they'll run towards you and kill you almost every time. So nothing too dangerous has happened so far, and we're already current tier 57. If you kill the enemies really fast, your tier will go up even faster. If you're slow at killing enemies, then it'll go up pretty slow. That red bar is showing if we get overwhelmed, and this happens when you let too many enemies show up, which is why we want to get rid of those pillars there. And as we get rid of the enemies, the overwhelmed bar is going to go less and less. Now, I want to keep killing enemies until it starts to get difficult, which usually happens around tier 100. So we should be approaching that. And also at tier 100, you get a bunch of asteroids falling from the sky that will kill you. So we're going to go ahead and be a little cautious here, making sure we're taking down all of the enemies and we're not accidentally walking into the explosions that get me killed almost all the time. We're about tier 100, so I'm going to go through and I'm going to take everything but the lightning. And I am wearing Nemesis bracers on, which means that they will spawn those elites when I click on them. So I have to be careful about that as well. There's the asteroids that came in. Those little green things on the ground show where the asteroids are going to land. I'm going to dodge those to the best of our abilities. And then right about here at current tier 110, that's when I want to get this last pylon, because it should allow me to get to the level I need to reach, which is 125. So we'll see if we can reach there. $123, $124, $125, $126. Okay. So now we're safe. We could just let ourselves die out if we need to. We could let ourselves get overwhelmed. Obviously, it's better to go over here and get as high as you can because you gain a lot of Paragon points for it. I don't care since I'm not a hardcore character. I just go until I die. But if this was a hardcore character, that would have been the end of your hardcore run right there. So the best thing that you can do is to stop attacking and run around towards the edge of the zone and let yourself get overwhelmed so that you don't lose your hardcore character. My very first hardcore loss after getting over level 70 was because I naively thought that, you know, oh, well, the only way to stop these things is to die, so it shouldn't get rid of my character. And of course, I was devastated when I found out I lost a Paragon level 600 necromancer. So we did that, and we got ourselves a Whisper of Atonement, rank 125. Now you see, it does say you can get up to rank 150. Now, no matter how far you get in there, even if you get to tier 150, it will not give you a rank 150 gem. The only way to level these up is to go to Greater Rifts and then to put them in the gem slot and rank them up that way. But the only way to guarantee a 100% chance of ranking it up for a rank 125 gem would be to do a Greater Rift level 135. That's very difficult for a lot of people. So it makes sense to just go there, get your rank 125 gem, augment all of your gear, and then once you get the damage boost for augmenting all of your gear, start going up higher Greater Rift levels, and then you can start all over again and start ranking these things up to, you know, let's say 140 or something like that. So, that being said, we're going to augment our gear for the first time. I believe I don't have an augment in anything else. And since our necklace is so perfect compared to everything else, we're going to go ahead and augment this necklace. So I'm going to go over to the cube and go to augment ancient item. Now we mentioned that we talked about ancient items earlier and how much more valuable they are. That's because only ancient items can be augmented. Primal items, of course, being included in that as they're above an ancient item. And you can see that in order to do a weapon, I need a rank 30 plus gem. This is referring to here. In order to do a ring, rank 40 plus, and in order to do an armor, rank 50 plus. These are fairly easy to achieve. And then I need one of the following items that I want to put on my character. So I'm going to go ahead and put my thing that I want to augment in here. I'm going to put my 3 gems because I want to put the dexterity from this onto here. And then I'm going to put in my Whisper of Atonement. Now once this is done, this should augment the item. And is there anything else that I need? Does not look like it. Transmute. Now we see I have plus 625 dexterity. Caldesan's Despair, rank 125. That's from the 125 gem that we have on there. So that just added 625 dexterity to my build, which is going to increase my damage significantly and give me a little bit more armor to stay alive as well. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 items on us. If these were all ancient, we could augment 12 total items plus the one that we have here. So let's go ahead and do some math. We're going to say 13 items because we have our necklace as well. We're going to multiply it by 625 dexterity, and that's going to give us an additional 8,125 dexterity to our build. And we can see we currently have 20,000 dexterity. That's from mainly our items and some Paragon. If we go and look at our Paragon, we see that we're only adding 330 dexterity despite being a level 834 character. So that 8,000 dexterity, let's see what we get per point. 5 dexterity per point. Let's divide that by 5. That would be the equivalent of gaining an additional 1,625 Paragon levels. So if you choose not to augment your gear, it would be the same as playing this game until you reach Paragon level 2,100 or somewhere close to that, I believe. I'm not doing exact math there. That's just an estimate. So my next step would be to obviously gain a lot of gems. And the only way I can gain a lot of gems is to take advantage of my follower. My follower has a broken crown on. It says whenever a gem drops, a gem of the type socketed into your helmet also drops. This effect does not apply to legendary gems, and it emanates. So what does emanating things do? Well, it means anytime your follower is nearby you, anything that emanates from him is going to affect me as well. So in this case, it's also going to drop a gem that's socketed into the helmet. Now, despite him having a ruby in his helmet, the gem that would drop would be the one that's in mine, which is a diamond. Now, this applies to all diamond types, which is why, if you see in the bottom here, I have 959 diamonds compared to the rest of these, which are relatively low. I did have a topaz in my other character, which is why this is at 1,066. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, hey, what are we going to do with all of these extra gems if we don't really need them? Well, some of them are used in crafting. So anytime you want to enchant a ring, you're going to need an Imperial Emerald. You want to offhand ring, you're going to need a amethyst, and then your necklace is also an emerald. So they can be used for that. Anytime you want to craft or forge something, they also require some of these gems as well. But something we can do that would make life so much easier is to go visit our favorite seller, which is Squirt. Said that a little bit funny. Visit our favorite seller, Squirt. So we're going to go and talk to her. And we're going to go to miscellaneous. And we see that she has these essence of diamond, ruby, topaz, emerald, and amethyst. I'm going to go ahead and buy a bunch of essence of emerald. Maybe 40 or so is what I want to buy. Not sure exactly how much, and it doesn't really matter, so we'll just make it even 50. And if I go over here to the cube, and then I go to convert gems, you can see if I take any 9 gems, and I have any of these essences, I can convert it to whatever essence I want to use. So let's go ahead and take these, put plenty in there, that's over 9. And then I'm going to put the essence that I want in here. I'm going to hit transmute, and now I get 10 emeralds. So to save a little bit of time and making it so I don't have to do this over and over again, on console especially, but I go over here, hit close. I'm going to go to diamonds, and I'm going to go ahead and stack this up as high as I can. Let's do like 100-ish at a time. There we go. And then I'm going to go to the right direction. Come over here, and I'm going to go to that convert page. I'm going to put in these guys. I'm going to put in my essence. Hit that. Now we have 9 flawless royal emeralds. So let's do that again. And one more time. So converting them all first just saves you a little bit of these essences and allows you to do a lot of these. On console in particular, it's so annoying to sit there and spam craft, over and over and over again. So I highly recommend you just do that for whatever you have the most of, and then put it over into this flawless royal thing. So we need 3 of these per augment, and we have 27, which lets us do 9 augmented items. So as long as we keep these, we only have 4 petrified screams. So our limiter is the petrified screams. In this case, we could do 4. And we could add the best items first. So whatever we have that's really good. This glove is incredibly good, so I'd probably do that. In fact, it looks like I already did with the plus 625 Caldescent's Despair. So then I would go to the next item and say, okay, well, maybe I do this Dawn, as that's a pretty good Dawn. So that concludes all of the tips that we currently have for this video. Now, there are so many more things in this game that can take the experience up even more in terms of how we operate and how we get through all of these numerous greater rifts and get more power. There's probably another 4 hours worth of video that I could make on various topics in this game, such as how to efficiently run greater rifts, or within these certain item types, which one should you focus on first. And the reason that I first started this journey into learning more about this game actually started with my life. I was never into Diablo or any of the Diablo games, and I'd never really been exposed to any of the Diablo games. Then one time in our room, we have our TV put up on the wall, and our bed is below the TV. So whenever my wife plays a game, I inevitably see it out of the corner of my eye. And I was filled with all of these questions, such as, hey, how can you tell what gear is good? How can you tell which gear is bad? What are the orange items? What are the green items in the game? What is that goblin? How often do they spawn? Where are they? And she kind of got probably a little irritated answering all of these questions that I had. So she's like, do you want to just play? Do you want to learn how? And I could show you from the beginning. Here's a little bit about it. It's like, you can learn from the beginning. And so I hopped on and we started playing couch co-op. And then we ran into a bit of an issue, which is that I could only play games when she was playing and vice versa. And she ended up getting further and further along. And I decided, okay, well, in order to actually compete and to actually be fair, I'm going to have to get this on my own console. So I first played Diablo 3 on console, and I looked up YouTube videos and internet questions over and over again to try and figure out what I could do to beat my wife in the game in a good way, in a healthy way. And after a while, I started getting further along. I got exposed to seasonal content. And when I asked, my wife, I said, hey, why don't you do the seasons? Why don't you play any of that stuff? She's like, I don't want to start over. That sounds, lame, or it sounds stupid. It sounds boring. So when I started over for the season for the first time, I was season 27, and we got exposed to the, I believe the sanctified items that are currently in this season are the angelic crucibles. And it was my first experience with finding a new way to play the game. As I started getting further along in the seasonal character, I ended up being farther than my non-seasonal character, and I got the excitement of discovering all of the items in the game for the first time. And I thought to myself, hey, there's still probably stuff about this game that I don't know, and to this day, even when making this video, I find myself learning new information and wanting to share it with all of you guys. So thank you for taking the time to listen to this, lengthy discussion about some ways to improve our knowledge in the game and to make it a little bit easier to get to those higher ranks sooner.